2015, at the 70th session of the General Assembly in New York, the United Nations formally adopted a list of 17 Sustainable Development Goals. These were no modest proposals. They included ending poverty globally, ending world hunger, and ensuring the health and well-being of every global citizen. They're worthy goals, but as you can imagine, we are way behind on achieving them. My next guest has written a book with some very good ideas on how to actually tackle the most pressing of these problems. Bjorn Lomborg heads the think tank, the Copenhagen Consensus Center. His book is called Best Things First. Bjorn Lomborg, pleasure to have you on.
It's great to be here.
The good news here is that there are actually there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of stuff you can spend a certain amount of money that would not be difficult for countries and achieve a lot.
Absolutely. The bottom line in the book is we could spend $35 billion. That's not nothing. I mean, I don't think neither you or I have that. But, in the global scheme of things, that's really couch change. $35 billion a year. And you could save 4.2 million lives each and every year and make the poor half of the world $1.1 trillion richer each and every year. That's almost $1 per person per day in the entire poor half of the world. This is just phenomenal stuff.
So explain to us what's the biggest bang for the buck you can get.
Let me just give you one example for maternal and newborn health. So one of the things that surprised me is that a lot of moms die in childbirth. So about 300,000 moms die each and every year, and 2.3 million kids die in the first 28 days on the planet. If we invested about $5 billion per year in basic, you need to get women into facilities to give birth, and you need to have basic obstetric care there. If you had that, you could save 166,000 moms each year. You could save 1.2 million kids. Overall, every dollar delivers $87 of benefit for the world. That's an amazing investment.
What about education?
Everybody agrees we should have great education, and education really is the key. We estimate that if countries would have the same educational achievement as Great Britain, for instance, they would be 30-40% richer. The problem is that we've now gotten all kids into schools, but they're not learning. So there's almost 500 million kids in the lower half of poor half of the world. And they're almost all in primary school, but they're not learning. The real problem here is when you're in school, we put all the 12-year-olds in one grade, all the 13-year-olds in one grade, and so on. But actually, these 12-year-olds are wildly different. What we need is to have a way to teach each one at their level. One teacher can't do that, but what can do this, and this is just one of the solutions, is you put them in front of a tablet 1 hour a day. That tablet has educational software. That tablet obviously costs money, but it can teach that kid at her or his exact level. Very quickly figures out what
this has been tried and proven.
This is trialed and proven in a lot of different trials. We estimate spend $30 because this tablet will be shared with at least 7 other kids over the day. If you do this over the year, it'll cost about $30 per kid per year. And it simply leaves the world much better off. We estimate for every dollar spent, you will do $65 of social good. Fantastic.
Now, you do have a couple of very traditional issues, like a lot of people die of tuberculosis still. What can we do about that?
So tuberculosis, it used to be the world's biggest killer. Tuberculosis over the last 200 years killed 1 billion people. Every 4th person in the 1800s that you've ever heard of died from tuberculosis. But we fixed it. We know how to deal with it. So we don't think about it anymore. But it killed, last year in 2022, it killed more people than COVID. So, it's one of those things that hit a lot of poor people, but, most people in the rich world don't care. It's very simple. You need treatment, but it's hard to do because you actually need treatment for half a year. You need to take the pills for a full half year. You need to help people remember to do that, because if they don't, they'll probably revert and possibly even have multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. We know, spend about $5.5 billion a year, and you could save about 1 million people each and every year to 2050. Again, if you spend that amount of money, you do $46 of social good for every dollar spent.
Now, finally, how are you going to get countries to do these things? You point out they do have the money. This is not crazy amounts of money by any stretch for them. Why do you think they're not doing it, and how do you change that?
So the reality is, rich countries don't do it because we think about other things. But for poor countries, of course, the rich people in poor countries don't get tuberculosis either. It's, migrants, it's in slum neighborhoods and all kinds of other places. The rich people's kid in poor countries go to good schools. And so, in some ways, this is the exact same thing. It's very often people without a voice. But the point here is to say, if you can show people you can do this so cheaply, so effectively, for this little money, us having this conversation is a way to get the message out. But at the end of the day, it has to be politicians, it has to be normal people who say, I actually want to do something about bad education in the world. I want to do something about tuberculosis. But now we've given the case that this is both incredibly cheap and incredibly effective.
Bjorn, great to have you on.
Thank you.
The book is Best Things First. Next on GPS, this program launched 15 years ago this week. We'll look back on the highs and lows of the last decade and a half and the extraordinary people we met along the way.